Welcome back to IT English Hub, the podcast for software professionals who want to communicate with confidence in English. This is episode 3, and if you've been following the series, you already know Sarah. In episode 1, she handled her first coding blocker in a daily stand-up. In episode 2, she practiced for and absolutely crushed her tech job interview. Well, we have exciting news. Sarah got the job. She has just joined her new company as a mid-level developer, and today is her very first sprint planning meeting. For those who are new to Agile, a sprint planning meeting happens at the beginning of every sprint, usually every 2 weeks. The team comes together to decide what work they will commit to completing in the upcoming sprint. Sarah's new manager is Alex. Yes, the same Alex from her old team, who recommended her for this role and has since moved to the same company as a tech lead. Today, the whole team is in the room, but we'll focus on Alex and Sarah's conversation as they navigate the planning session together. Pay close attention to 5 new key phrases. Each one is explained clearly inside the conversation. These are phrases you will hear in almost every sprint planning meeting at any professional tech company. Let's join the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sprint 14 Planning. For those who don't know her yet, and I see a few new faces, I'd like to introduce Sarah, who has just joined us as a mid-level developer. Sarah, we're very glad to have you.
Thank you, Alex. Really happy to be here. Looking forward to getting stuck in.
Great attitude. Okay, let's get started. As always, we have 2 hours blocked for this session. The goal today is simple. We look at the backlog, we agree on what we can realistically deliver the sprint, and we assign ownership. Before we pull tickets in, I want to do a quick velocity check from last sprint.
Velocity in Agile is a measure of how much work a team successfully completed in a previous sprint, usually measured in story points, which are units that represent the size and complexity of a task. When Alex does a velocity check, he is reviewing the team's recent output to understand their realistic capacity for the upcoming sprint. If the team completed 40 story points last sprint, it would be unrealistic to plan 70 story points for this one. Think of velocity as the team's average working speed. Knowing it prevents overcommitting, which is one of the most common mistakes in Agile planning.
Last sprint, the team completed 38 story points out of a planned 42. That's a strong sprint, a completion rate of about 90%. The 4 unfinished points carried over from one ticket that had a dependency on the design team. So for this sprint, let's plan conservatively and aim for around 38 to 40 points again.
That makes sense. So we're basing this sprint's capacity on what we actually delivered, not what we hoped to deliver?
Exactly right. Hope is not a planning strategy. Okay, let's open the backlog. Now, for Sarah's benefit, and as a reminder for everyone, our backlog is prioritized by the product team. The tickets at the top are the highest priority. We work from the top down. Sarah, in your previous role, did you use story points?
We did, yes, though I'll admit I sometimes found it hard to estimate accurately, especially for tickets I hadn't worked on before.
That's completely normal. Estimation is a skill that develops over time, and it's exactly why we do it as a team, not alone. Right, let's pull the first ticket. Ticket 881, rebuild the user notification service. Product has marked this as high priority. It's currently sitting at an estimate of 8 story points. Does anyone want to challenge that estimate before we commit?
I think 8 might be a bit low, actually. The notification service touches 3 different microservices, and if we're rebuilding it from scratch, there's a risk of scope creep.
Excellent phrase. Scope creep is one of the most important concepts in software project management, and one of the most dangerous. It refers to the gradual, often unplanned expansion of a project's requirements beyond what was originally agreed. It creeps. It grows slowly and quietly. A task that started as rebuild the notification service might slowly grow to include also update the database schema and while we're in there, refactor the logging system. Each individual addition seems small, but together they make the task far bigger than planned. Scope creep causes missed deadlines, team burnout, and budget overruns. Recognizing it early and naming it clearly, as Marcus just did, is a key professional skill.
Good flag, Marcus. I agree, there's scope creep risk here. Sarah, you have experience with notification systems. What's your read?
I'd probably bump it to 13 points, honestly, especially if we're touching multiple microservices. 8 feels optimistic. And I'd want to make sure we have a clear acceptance criteria defined before we start.
Acceptance criteria, sometimes written as AC, are the specific agreed conditions that a piece of work must meet in order to be accepted as complete by the product team or the client. They are written before development begins and answer the question, how will we know when this is done and done correctly? For example, the acceptance criteria for a login feature might be, a user can log in with a valid email and password. An incorrect password shows an error message. A successful login redirects to the dashboard. Acceptance criteria are closely related to the definition of done, but where the definition of done is a general checklist for all tickets, acceptance criteria are specific to each individual ticket. Using this phrase in a meeting immediately shows that you think about quality, clarity, and shared understanding before writing a single line of code.
100%. Marcus, can you and Sarah pair up after this meeting to write the acceptance criteria for ticket 881 before we start development? I want them documented in Jira by end of day tomorrow.
No problem.
Happy to do that.
Good. I'm going to revise the estimate to 13 points based on the team's input. That's the right call. Moving on. Ticket 882. Implement dark mode for the settings page. This one is 5 points. Straightforward front-end work. Any concerns?
I can take that one. I've worked on the settings page before, so I know the code base.
Perfect. Assigned to Priya. Ticket 883. Fix the pagination bug on the search results page. 2 points. Quick win. Sarah, would you be happy to take this as your first ticket? It's a good way to get familiar with the code base without too much pressure.
Absolutely. I was actually going to ask if there was something like that available. 2 points sounds right for a pagination fix, depending on what's causing it.
We'll add a note in Jira that it might need re-estimation once you've had a look at the root cause. Now, I want to flag something before we go further. Looking at our total so far, we're already at 20 points with just 3 tickets, and we still have 5 more in the backlog. I want to make sure we don't overcommit this sprint.
Overcommit, or to overcommit to a sprint, means to promise more work than the team can realistically complete within the sprint timeframe. It is one of the most common and most damaging mistakes in Agile. When a team overcommits, the result is almost always unfinished tickets, a demoralized team, and a sprint review where you have to explain why you didn't deliver what you promised. The opposite, being realistic and slightly conservative, is not a sign of low ambition. It is a sign of a mature, trustworthy team. As Alex knows from experience, it is always better to deliver everything you committed to and pick up 1 extra ticket than to commit to 10 things and deliver 7.
How do we usually handle the remaining backlog items if we can't fit them all in?
Great question. Anything we don't pull into this sprint stays in the backlog and moves to the top of the priority list for sprint 15. The product team reevaluates priority at the end of each sprint, so positions can't shift. The key word is we only commit to what we're confident we can deliver. Quality over quantity every time.
That makes sense. I've been on teams before that overpromised every sprint and then spent the whole 2 weeks stressed and cutting corners. It wasn't a great environment.
Unfortunately, that's very common, and it's usually a planning problem, not a people problem. Good planning protects the team. Right, let's look at the remaining tickets and see what fits. All right, here's where we land. We've committed to 39 story points this sprint, which is right in line with our velocity. I'm happy with that. One final thing before we close. Sarah, I want to make sure you feel comfortable with your ticket. Do you have any questions about how we handle things here or anything you want to flag before we kick off the sprint?
Kickoff, or to kick off a sprint, means to officially begin it. The phrase comes from sports, where a kickoff is the moment the game starts. In business and tech, kickoff is used very broadly. You can kick off a meeting, a project, a sprint, or even a new quarter. A kickoff meeting is often a dedicated session that marks the formal start of something. When Alex asks if they can kick off the sprint, he is asking, are we ready to officially start? Is everyone aligned? Does everyone have their tickets? And are there any final concerns before we begin?
Actually, yes, one small thing. I noticed that ticket 883 doesn't have a linked design file. Should I chase that before I start, or is it safe to proceed based on the existing UI?
Good spot. I'll ping the design team now and get it linked before end of day. That is exactly the kind of thing to flag before you start, not after you're halfway through. Well done.
Also, just to confirm, our sprint goal for this sprint is to complete the notification service rebuild and the 2 bug fixes, right? The dark mode is secondary priority.
Correct. The sprint goal is improve system reliability and fix critical user-facing bugs. The notification rebuild is our headline deliverable. Everything else supports that. Good that you've clarified it. Knowing the sprint goal means you understand why you're doing your ticket, not just what you're doing. That matters.
Got it. Then yes, I'm ready to kick off the sprint. Let's go.
That's what I like to hear. Okay, team, Sprint 14 is officially open. Let's have a great 2 weeks. Stand-ups at 9 a.m. daily. Any blockers, come to me or post in the team channel immediately. Let's deliver.
And that's a wrap on episode 3 of IT English Hub. Sarah has officially started her new role, and she already showed exactly why she was hired. Asking smart questions, flagging missing information, clarifying the sprint goal, and using the right professional language throughout. Here are the 5 key phrases from today's episode. Velocity check. Reviewing the team's past output to set a realistic capacity for the next sprint. Scope creep. The gradual, unplanned expansion of a task beyond its original boundaries. Acceptance criteria. The specific conditions a ticket must meet to be considered complete. Overcommit, promising more work than the team can realistically deliver in a sprint. Kick off the sprint. To officially begin the sprint once planning is complete. Your free study guide is in the description below. Vocabulary, dialogue extracts, comprehension questions, and a bonus practice task. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, every conversation is a chance to practice. Until next time, keep coding and keep communicating.